Kika tonight, and it is about the on and off talk of a referendum to change the country's constitution. At this stage, the referendum is just some floating talk and remains as random and incoherent as only Francis Atwoli can best illustrate. In his Labor Day speech Wednesday, the COTU Secretary General once again trumpeted his referendum selling point, the age of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Atwoli has repeatedly argued that President Kenyatta would be too young to retire when his second and last term comes to an end in 2022. This is a troubling argument on two grounds. First, it trivializes the referendum. Constitution making should not and should never be about specific individuals. Secondly, Atwoli's argument suggests loss of touch with the constitutional history of Kenya. Just a few reminders for the COTU Secretary General, who would no doubt know a thing or two about Kenya's history. Back in the 1960s, former powerful Attorney General Charles Njonjo would change the constitution as he wished. He took this to absurd levels when he changed the law 3 times just to keep an individual in office. When Chief Justice Sir James Weeks, who was nicknamed Njonjo's boy, by the way, reached the judge's retirement age of 68, Njonjo changed the law to make the retirement age 70 years. When the Chief Justice turned 70, Njonjo changed the law to make the retirement age 72 years. When Chief Justice Weeks celebrated his 72nd birthday, Charles Njonjo changed the law again to move the retirement age to 74 years. Later on, more retrogressive changes were made on the constitution, making Kenya a single-party dictatorship. And twice in our history, we came real close to having live presidents by law. Now, these are the absurdities this country walked away from in 2010 when the new, far more progressive constitution was promulgated. If the Build Bridges Initiative, BBI, is preparing to propose constitutional changes, those changes had better be about moving the country forward and not bringing back the past through the back door. The mooted referendum should be more than just about the future of a retired president or even his friend or brother, I may add. As Francis Atwoli may well remember, the current constitution is a product of hard work and compromise, a ceasefire document earned through blood and tears. Some Kenyans died for this constitution to be achieved. Changing it, if at all, should be a solemn, sober, and thoughtful process that goes beyond the names and political destinies of specific individuals, no matter their age or stature. Another reminder to Francis Atwoli: we are Kenyans, we are not Ugandans. That is my kicker.
And you can kicker yourself. Now we are at the tail end of the financial year 2018-2019, and contents of the 2019-2020 budget are with us. The National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, in compliance with the Constitution and Public Finance Management Act of 2012, submitted the budget estimates to the National Assembly 2 months to the end of the current financial year. It will be a 2.8 trillion shillings budget, with 1.8 trillion shillings allocated to recurrent expenditure. The government hopes to collect 1.8 trillion shillings in revenue. I highly doubt Kenya Revenue Authority will generate this amount if past performance is anything to go by. But I could be wrong. It is critical to know that the 2019-2020 budget has a deficit of 607 billion shillings, and should KRA fail to meet the target, the shortfall will increase. This means in the 2019-2020 budget, the government will borrow at least 607 billion shillings locally and internationally. You know what that means? The debt burden increases. It will hit the 6 trillion shillings mark. At least 310 billion shillings is allocated to county governments, though the Senate and governors are rooting for at least 335 billion shillings. Figures aside, the pertinent question is, how much of this budget will be put into proper use? How much of this budget will be siphoned by the perennial termites at the national and county governments? How vigilant are our national and county legislatures to ensure prudent management of these resources? Let me put it this way. The ultimate threat to a good budget is corruption and wastage. The sole enemy of development is greed and insatiable appetite for public funds meant for a majority of the population by a few well-connected wheeler dealers. It is impunity and corruption. Now, let me sum this up with a poem by a young Indian poetess called Shraddha Shraddha. Corruption, corruption, corruption. It is now a profession. It is like spreading an infection. It needs instant cure and medication. It works like a termite, eating everything day and night. It is a malicious cancer, deep-rooted, posing a danger. Only we talk and inquire, that also with no true desire, we hardly raise our voices, as if we have no choice. Root cause are we, not they. Our or she. Let's pledge to fight or to erode this termite. And at a personal level, how will you deal with the termites in Nairobi and in your counties that eat your roads, eat your healthcare, eat your dams? That's my punchline.
My take tonight is about Labor Day. This year's theme was Uniting Workers for Social and Economic Advancement. This year's celebrations were, however, marked by a low turnout, but also flashy flamboyance, complete with performances from musicians drawn from as far as the Democratic Republic of Congo, apparently chosen after the taste of COTU leader Francis Atwoli. Praise songs that were eerily reminiscent of the sycophancy of the KANU days appeared to be the signature of the day. The praise party, complete with performing artists donning COTU attire, was, to say the least, embarrassing. And then there was the sideshow of a so-called Sonko Defense Force, not forgetting politicians taking selfies. What was curiously missing from the Workers' Day was a focus on workers. Now, all this would have been great if the workers were all one big happy lot, if their grievances had all been taken care of, and if Kenya were teeming with so many jobs without anyone to do them. But no. Kenyan workers are one big unhappy lot. Their grievances have hardly been addressed, and of course, jobs are increasingly difficult to come by. In a survey conducted by job placement website Brighter Monday, half of those polled said they would not recommend the companies they work for to their relatives and friends. The survey also revealed that the most important factors for workers are job security, pay, and proximity to work. Let's face it, surveys aside, the Kenyan worker today is overwhelmed and overburdened. Up to 30% of their pay goes to taxes. The worker pays for her social security and NHIF. In fact, the Kenyan worker is always said to be just one sick relative away from poverty. They can only afford healthcare because their employer provides health insurance. But they're constantly in one WhatsApp group or another, raising funds for family or friends who need specialized healthcare. Those in employment often supplement their income with what we popularly call a side hustle. We bake cakes for friends and family. We cook food for events. We weave mats. We sell clothes on the side. Because one income is simply not enough. Tony Watima in the Business Daily wrote in 2018 that the Kenyan economy is creating low-value jobs that had little positive effect to the economy. The Federation of Kenya Employers, in its Skills Mismatch Survey report of 2017, pointed to the education system, with employers reportedly spending between 20 and 100,000 shillings retraining fresh graduates to help them fit into the workplace. These, ladies and gentlemen, are the real issues in Kenya's labor market today. Dancing in purple shirts and listening to praise songs all day cannot change that stubborn reality. The Umbrella Workers Union, COTU, was surely designed to be more than this. An organization that has lived for 54 years can surely not be about just one man. It simply cannot be a mere platform for issuing edicts, receiving praises, and straying into unnecessarily political sycophancy. The Kenyan worker deserves better, much better. And that is my take tonight.
Oh, wow. Now, tonight, my angle comes from our neighborhood, the Republic of Uganda, the country Winston Churchill, as an early explorer, nicknamed the Pearl of Africa. You see, my concern is more like that of a neighbor who is increasingly perturbed by bad behavior next door. It is more like living next to a persistently abusive neighbor who beats the wife and children every night. You wouldn't just keep quiet, would you? Let me explain. Now, 2 days ago, Uganda's telecommunications regulator, the Uganda Communications Commission, wrote a letter which reminded me of the Kenya of the 1980s. The letter was addressed to one of Uganda's private TV stations, NBS, a fast-growing TV channel that in 2016 shook the Ugandan market with its on-the-go live news gathering at the height of the heated presidential campaigns. The letter was largely general in nature, complaining about some unidentified offense that NBS had allegedly committed in the course of its regular live broadcasts. But it is the directives given by the Commission to the broadcaster that are more worrisome. Those orders border on the laughable, if not outright insane. In the letter, the Commission says, and I'll quote now, "In order to avoid a recurrence during the investigations, the Commission hereby directs that NBS should immediately suspend the producer, head of news, and head of programming pending conclusion of the investigations." Really? That the Commission, in broad daylight, through an official letter printed on a letterhead, is asking a broadcasting station to suspend 3 of its top employees for some unspecified offense? But it doesn't end there. The Commission further directs that NBS should within 3 days submit to the Commission the names, the particulars, and the qualifications of these office holders. Now, this is surely something that has to be condemned. At any time, and even more loudly on this eve of the globally observed World Press Freedom Day. It is gratifying to note, however, that the country's National Association of Broadcasters, NAB, has challenged this directive and asked for an urgent meeting with the Commission. The association has rightly pointed out that suspending the said staffers would undermine journalism in that country and create an environment of fear. Now, we have had many difficult times in Kenya in the media, including that mindless shutdown in early 2018. And yes, the government has often tried to influence staffing of key roles in media houses, but it never came to this. A regulator spelling out in black and white the names and roles of people who should be fired. Please note, I do not work for NBS, but as an experienced journalist, I know that a media house of NBS's caliber would have its own internal mechanisms of dealing with any breaches or complaints. But for a regulator to arrogate itself the power to hire and fire journalists at will is the height of folly and an unfortunate moment of institutional power-drunk stupor for the USCC. This administrative arrogance must be condemned. Journalism is not a crime, so please let NBS be. Let the journalists be. Just a view from a concerned neighbor. And that is my angle tonight.
Talking about concerned neighbors, I'm reminded of the situation in Tharaka Nithi, that killing of a chief and the killing of an OCS. Very, very sad.
Indeed.
Even when situations such as those arise and when probably people are very disappointed with our law enforcers, I don't think it should ever get to that point.
Absolutely.
Unacceptable.
Absolutely. And your angle was very important ahead of World Press Freedom Day.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for your feedback. Continue the conversation.